So remember the themes that I've described is humanity is the blue guy, the red guy is skepticism, the green guy is common sense. And in part one, they all were going crazy and partaking in the destructive message that the media was telling them. Don't be creative. Consume our form of creativity, and just do what we say. So let's look at Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, Part 2. This one's about time. So let's discuss the first image that we see. They're all sitting around the TV, waiting for a TV show to come on. The common sense is in the rocking chair. The red guy's in a big green chair, and there's the June 19th on the wall. June 19th, I haven't figured out what this means. Yeah, I really don't know. I'm still working on that one, but everything takes place on June 19th, or at least every day in the show is June 19th, as though time never moves forward here. And this episode is about time. But there's a picture on the wall of the three of them together, and I thought it was interesting. But basically, it's just the three of them, and the blue guy's in the center, and he's got his arms around the other two. Common sense and skepticism, in my opinion. And you know, they're working together, they're living life, and they're happy. So let's see what happens here.
Come on, guys, stop mucking around. We only have 5 minutes until our show's on.
So the red guy starts off with saying, "Hey guys, stop mucking around." No one was doing anything. So it's unclear exactly what he means by mucking around. And then he says, "There's only 5 minutes till our show comes on." By the way, I've frozen the picture on the blue character and the green character. The blue character has a D on his shirt, so I think his name is something that starts with a D. And I'll tell you why later. But there's another character that we'll see. I'm not sure if it's in this episode. It might be. So the green guy checks his pocket watch.
That's not enough time!
And he says, "That's not enough time." So what does that mean? I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a way to start the conversation about time. But I'm unclear on their confusion. Skepticism, maybe they're just playing out their roles. The skeptic would say, "Oh, you know, we should stop fooling around and let's get ready to watch our show." And then the green guy, common sense, says, "Oh, well, that's not enough time." Time to what? I don't know.
There's always time for a song.
And then we get a very common media message. There's always time for, in this case they say, a song. But think of any commercial you've seen, and like, there's always time for coffee, there's always time for music, there's always time for whatever. It's a very popular media message that has been, it's since advertising has begun. That's a common theme throughout advertising, is that there's always time for this product.
Who is that?
And the skeptics, of course, who is that? What's he talking about?
Time is a tool you can put on the wall or wear it on your wrist.
Time is a tool you can put on the wall. So they're talking about clocks. They're advertising for clocks. You can. This is the media's interpretation of time. It's a product. It's always a product. And by the way, they misspell everything, which really gets on my nerves because I'm such a grammar Nazi. They spell wrist R-I-Z-D, which is the worst thing in the world. The only thing I can say in this particular picture is it? Yeah, it looks like it's exactly or 12:45. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure if the time on his wrist means something, but most of the things in the background do mean something here. So
the past
I haven't
is
figured it
far
out.
behind us. The future doesn't exist.
So he says the past is far behind us, the future doesn't exist. But what's in between is what's interesting. It's actually the picture of the clown that the blue guy had made, and it's covered in black. It's in the past, or is it in the present? Because everything takes place on the same day, the 19th of June. So it's always the present here. And that's sort of how kids shows operate. It's always the same day. Things never change. But I'm unclear on how those work together. I think it becomes more clear in the next one, but I don't I'll save it for that theory.
The future doesn't exist.
And it says the future doesn't exist, and it shows a picture and it says nothing on it. But that's not really true, is it? The future does exist, and we have to plan for it. But that's not what the media wants us to do. They don't want you to think about the future. If the future doesn't exist, then it's easier to purchase products now and consume now. And that's a very popular message in the media. Buy it now because you might be dead tomorrow.
Ow.
What's the time?
It's 9:15. Time to have a bath.
What do you mean? We're already clean.
Scrub, scrub, scrub till the water's brown.
So then he tells them, hey, it's 9:15, you need to have a bath. And the common sense says, what do you mean? We're already clean. And the time just ignores him and says, scrub, scrub, scrub till the water's brown, which is gross. And I'm not sure on the color brown. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I think there's another meaning to it, but I haven't figured it out yet. But basically, it's the media again. No. This is when you take a bath. This is when you do these things. And then he gives a whole list of things and when you're supposed to do them.
Time is a ruler to measure the day. It doesn't go backwards, only one way. Watch it.
Time is a ruler to measure the day. It only goes one way. It only goes forward. And yeah, and then it has a bunch of things on there. And one of the things on there is a hypodermic needle. So there's a time for your medicine. You got to take your Ritalin, but I'll get to that more later.
Go round like a merry-go-round. Going so fast like a merry-go-round.
So at this point, the blue guy is becoming confused. He's falling into the trap of the media message. Yeah, time's going forward. It's kind of confusing for me. And then they go into outer space, and it goes really bizarre.
Let's go on a journey through all time, a time that's changing all the time. It's time to go to time.
So he repeats the word time so many times that it starts to lose meaning. And that's another thing that the media does, is they confuse you on the meaning of words by simply repeating them over and over again as though they had a meaning, but what is the meaning of that word? And the red guy says,
We don't really want to. We're going to miss our show.
Don't be stupid, friends. Come on, it's time to go.
He says, we don't want to miss our show. So there's some TV show that he wants to watch. And the clock says, don't be stupid. It's time to go. And I think this is advertising. Like, I think that the idea is that the clock is advertising to them. So he's got a bunch of media messages before the TV show that he just wants to throw at them. And then they go through this 2D paperwork cobblestone town. Looks like maybe Old England or something like that. And yeah, let's see that.
So, like a Victorian time. With cobbles and playing and speaking in rhyme.
With cobbles and something and speaking in rhyme. So there's two things in this particular image that I want to talk about. The first one, there's in the background, it says wanted dead or alive. And then 1906 is the reward for the kid. It's the blue guy, obviously. Now, why is he wanted, and why is he wanted dead or alive? Well, you, the consumer, are wanted by the media. They want to control you, so that's what's going on. That's what number one started. The first episode is they were getting into the head of the blue guy, and they succeeded. They said, "Stop being creative." He was like, "Don't make that cool painting. It's too cool. Consume our media message instead." And in this one, it showed that picture again that he had made that they covered in black ink, and now there's literally a price on his head from the media, because literally we're all reduced to a price. One of the things I do is analytics for games, and the lifetime value of a user, LTV. You'll hear that term if you study analytics. The lifetime value is literally the value of a user's life over the course of time that they spend in your product. So it's literally their lifetime in your product. And then 1906, obviously that's June the 19th making another appearance. And there's a couple theories on June the 19th. I'm going to address them at the end of the series because I think it's important to see the last one before I make a determination on the actual meaning of it. So I'll get back to that one.
Making it right! With cobbles and chimneys, a simpler time.
This guy covered in green, who comes out of the sewer. Who is he? So he's someone from the past. I think it's the blue-haired kid's father in the past, because it's got a red teardrop nose, which his father also has. And you'll see him, I think, in this episode. So I think this is him in the past, and maybe he's a sewer worker or something.
This tree that is old has circles inside. The tree that is older has shriveled and died.
The apple that's fresh is ripe to the core.
And I'm not over time, and I'm not anymore.
So this is just the effect of time on different things. The media wants you to know that these things go bad. Why? So you can purchase new ones and consume new products. The face in the moon is also very important. I think it's the face of the blue guy's father. And then when it turns, you'll see another face, the sun. And the sun literally means his son, and it's the face of the blue-haired guy. So, I don't know, take a look at them, see if you
by the
agree.
moon or the sun, but time flies fast when you're having fun. There's a time and a place for mucking around.
So the green bird is playing with some cards. He's building a house of cards, and then the clock gets angry, and he says, "Hey, there's a time and a place for mucking around, and it's when we tell you." So don't be messing around when it's not time to do it, because you've got to do your job, and you've got to go to school and all that stuff. You've got to do all the things that we tell you to do, so that you can be a good little consumer. And then they give a bunch of things that they think is when you can muck around, like birthdays.
Camping.
I'm friends with my dad.
So birthdays and camping, and then the blue-haired boy says, "I'm friends with my dad." Weird, right? What do you mean, I'm friends with my dad? Then we see his face. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, he's got the long nose. In this case, it's crooked and he's balding. What does this mean? I'm not sure. But it's similar to the face on the moon. It's also similar to the face of the guy in the sewer who is covered in green stuff, but with the nose slightly crooked. This means something. This is very important to the message. If this is his dad, how come his dad never says anything? And where is he in the first episode? And this is an important message throughout. But this is the first time where we actually see the boy talking about his father. I think it's the last time too. And he says, "I'm friends with my dad." That's kind of a weird thing, right? I mean, yeah, you want to be, as a parent, you want to be friends with your kid, but you're also the parent, and you should be guiding them. And that's not what we see here. The father doesn't say anything, and it gets strange and weird.
And then what happened after the olden days?
Time went new and got old like history. Stuff from the past went into a mystery. An old man died.
So the media is like, okay, so let's talk about the father a little bit more. He's just standing there breathing, and it's uncomfortable. And you're supposed to be uncomfortable because this father isn't being a parent. He's not taking care of his kid. He's not guiding him through this. And then the media comes back in and starts telling you what you should be thinking about time. And the skeptic, the red guy, says, what happened to time? And the media says, things from the past became a mystery. That's not what really happens. History is something that you're supposed to study and understand, because if you don't understand history, you're doomed to repeat it, which is another... Well, actually, that's a school lesson, isn't it? No, anyways, the point is, the media doesn't want us to remember history. If we forget the past, then they can sell us the same things over and over again. And I mean, gee, isn't that literally what's happening? When you go see a movie that's a remake of something that was done better the first time, did you fall you're falling for their trap. Like, the old is new again, but there was nothing wrong with what was old. And then the boy points out a corpse.
But look, a computer.
And he points to the body. He says, "Hey, that guy died." And then the media comes back in and says, "Look, a computer!" What? He just completely ignores the fact that death is coming, you know? So then he goes through all the technology.
Everything's cool. It's the future. Time is now. The future are new. And look at all the wonderful things you can do.
The time is now, the future is new. Look at all the wonderful things you can do. And then the green guy, Common Sense, is strapped into a chair and forced to look at, like, iPhones. Literally iPhones, because it was... Let me find it. There. Literally glasses made out of iPhones. iPhones. And it's got a big I on it. It couldn't be any clearer what they're talking about. We consumers are being told to get the iPhone, and everyone does it.
With gadgets and gizmos and email addresses.
Gadgets and gizmos and email addresses. And the green guy, the Common Sense, is like shaking, like, oh, this is too much. I'm being overwhelmed. And then we see his father again. And what's he doing? Well, he's wearing a very strange hat. Perhaps a virtual reality hat? I don't know. But he's staring at pornography. And there's a picture of pornography on the wall. But the most important thing is that the child is emulating what the father is doing. He's wearing a pot on his head that looks like the same hat. And so what else might he be emulating that he sees from his father?
My dad is a computer.
And then we get what is probably the most horrifying message. My dad is a computer. So there's a double meaning there. The first meaning is his dad is literally so absorbed by his computer that he's indistinguishable from the computer. He's just constantly on the computer. He has no time for his child. The second meaning is that literally the boy's father is a computer. Not this father, but an actual computer. And that's where he goes to get entertainment and information. And we're going to see that in a future episode, and it's horrifying.
Look at the time.
He just breathes.
It's 7:45.
Now the fish. So again, there's that uncomfortable moment where the father's breathing, and then the clock sees the kid interacting with his parent, or about to, and then the clock interrupts and says it's time for something else. And then we get a bunch of different time periods, and they're all fish related, and I don't know why.
There's fish on my plate.
It's 8:20. There's fish on my tray.
It's 11 to 12. There's fish in the bar.
It's 9:30. There's fish everywhere.
It's 9:30. There's fish everywhere. I don't get it. This one completely blew over my head. I'm not sure what fish is supposed to represent. If it's maybe just the consumer product. Maybe the fish is the consumer product that the media wants them to consume at that particular moment in time, and thus the fish message is just being repeated over and over again. Every time is time for fish. That's actually a common media message. Any time is good for whatever.
Fish everywhere.
Now you can see the important.
Okay. So time says now you can see the important things, right?
Time. It helps us make
The importance
pizza.
of time.
It keeps things in line.
But when did it start?
And when will it stop?
Time is important, and I am a clock.
Time is important, and I am a clock. So they're starting to ask questions about time. And where they get is interesting.
If we run out of time, then where does it go?
Is time even real? Does anyone know?
Maybe time's just a construct of human perception. And
So there's a lot going on in this image. I'm just going to hit the ones that I kind of understand and at least point them out so that you can try to interpret them yourself. So pi equals 19.6 times y. That's 19.6 June the 19th again. Pi is circular, a circle, right? So June the 19th is repeating. Okay, that's pretty simple. Now Nazi symbol equals MC squared. Not 100% sure on what the meaning of that. A little bit disturbed by it. And then they're pointing at the brain. And I just thought of this scrub till the water's brown, maybe until you get to the base functions of the brain. That's what they're scrubbing. So they're brainwashing you until you can only react to things and use your fine motor skills and stuff, and you can no longer think for yourself because all the other areas of the brain have to do with different forms of thinking.
Created by...
So as soon as common sense starts saying time's an illusion, it's an illusion created by, and then the clock gets angry and he starts going meh, meh, which is really annoying. And blood starts coming out of the blue guy's ears as a result of that. Like, that's how much the clock doesn't want them to think about time anymore.
Sunrise, sunset, night and day. The changing seasons, the smell of hay. Look at your hair grow, isn't it strange? How time makes your appearance change.
Now, this is a very important media message, and a very, very common one. I'm sure you're all familiar with. Over time, you become old. We all know this. But they want you to be afraid of it. As afraid as you can be. And so we're treated to some horrific images as, you know, their hair grows and their skin starts falling off, their flesh starts melting, it becomes ugly, and
Make it stop!
the blue guy yells, "Make it stop." Like, he doesn't want to see images of himself getting old and decrepit and falling apart, literally falling apart. That's how the media instills us with fear about time. You're getting old and you're just gonna completely fall apart. And literally then common sense loses an eye, it just falls out of his head.
It's out of my hands, I'm only a clock. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll be fine. But eventually everyone runs out of time.
Eventually everyone runs out of time. But I'm sure you'll be fine. So, I mean, there's a number of reasons that that's interesting. But, I mean, it is a common media message, is that you're getting old. How do you stop the passage of time? Buy our product. Buy a rejuvenating lotion. Buy our makeup. Buy our hair product. Buy our baldness cure, etc., etc. So we saw those images of all three of them basically decrepifying and disintegrating. The red guy maybe got it the worst, but he seems fine here. What's interesting is the green guy one of his eyes fell out on the floor, and it's still there on the floor. Is that foreshadowing, or is that more relevant to the current picture? I'm not sure, but either way, if you look on the top left, you see that the picture that previously had the three of them together, there's nothing. So maybe it's just foreshadowing, or maybe they're saying without this partnership between common sense and skepticism, you have nothing. Maybe. Not sure. And then the red guy turns off the TV because he doesn't even want to watch this TV show anymore. And then we just see maggots and blue fur, which is great. There's one more important thing, I think.